Ladies and gentlemen, this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be following up the Half-Life 3 story. Just a couple of days ago, a voice actor was claiming that Half-Life 3 was no longer in development, but now he's since said, well, this isn't actually the case, and he misspoke about the project. His name is John Patrick Lorre, and he voiced numerous characters in various Valve franchises. In Half-Life 2, he voiced Odessa, and he's also married, by the way, to the actress who voiced GLaDOS. Now, it caused a lot of controversy over the internet because, once again, just to reiterate, he did say that, as far as he's aware, Half-Life 3 is not in development because of various reasons, including motion capture. So on his personal blog, he's removed his previous comments, and now he said, and I quote, "My comments just seem to cause a whole bunch of confusion, and when I tried to minimize the confusion, I misspoke and caused a whole bunch more confusion. The most important thing to know about voice actors is that we're the last to know everything. We don't find out about a project until we get hired to do the voices for it. What I was trying to say before and failed is that whatever Gabe has to say about the project is the best info you're going to get. He owns the company and knows what's going on. Sorry that I gave the impression that I know what's going on. I really wasn't trying to, and I really don't know." End quote. So this is kind of what I was alluding to in a previous video. Most of the time, most of the motion capture and everything else is somewhat done. Most of the storylines put in, the set pieces are put in, and then they start getting in the voice actors once they've better fleshed out the character, once they've got the storyline down and so on, because they, for example, might want to add a new set of characters into the game, and therefore they need to know stuff like, okay, well, what does this character look like, and what is this character going to sound like, and, you know, what's their backstory, what's the mannerisms, you know, do we want the guy to be British? Do we want him to be American? Do we want him to have a southern drawl? Do we want him to have, you know, a certain accent? All of this stuff is paramount to creating the atmosphere for the game. And so you can't really just do this stuff on the fly. In other words, you can't just hire voice actors until the project's done. And that's why I was somewhat skeptical in my previous video on what he was saying. Although what he had said, if I remember correctly, was that, you know, he'd spoken to a couple of people in the company and there was issues with the motion capture. Now we do know, well, do know is a strong word because once again Valve are extremely secretive, but there have been leaks to show that Valve are working on a follow-up to the Source engine. But that's a bit like me saying to you, well, if you don't have oxygen for, you know, a couple of months, you're not going to be as healthy as if you did have oxygen for the couple of months. In other words, it's a fairly obvious statement. The reason behind this, of course, is, look, their Source engine, which of course is used to power Half-Life 2, for example, as well as numerous other titles, has received updates. Those updates are fairly numerous, and each update has added various bits and pieces. For example, HDR, which is high dynamic range lighting, just for those of you who are uninitiated. This was added to in Half-Life 2, A Lost Coast, which was a freely available little add-on. It was a short mission, basically, for Half-Life 2, and it was just used to show off the shyness, basically, of HDR lighting. And it was one of the more popular and earliest examples of HDR, just for your FYI. But there was earlier versions, but this was one of the more mainstream versions, particularly on PC. And so the Source engine has gone through various incarnations and various improvements, and of course is also paramount in the creation of titles like, for example, Left 4 Dead 2. And we know that it is a pretty robust engine. It was also used, for example, for one of the vampire games, I believe it was Bloodlines, I think was the second title. And so the engine now is pretty old, you know, it's about a 10-year-old engine, give or take. And so, of course, they need to start producing a new one, a follow-up one, which is going to better utilize and show off the functions of a modern console or a modern PC. Because, let's face it, you can run Half-Life 2 on pretty much anything now. Even if you turn up all the settings up to absolute maximum, the engine is just old, and it can't really push the the levels of detail that maybe people expect. It's still a good-looking engine, however, to be fair, and it does a pretty good job, although it doesn't use the GPU as heavily as what it should be, but that's a slightly different story. But it does do physics pretty well, even considering how old it was. And of course, a lot of the reason that Half-Life 2 was had so many physics puzzles because Valve were very proud of them. Not that I blame them, it was very good use of physics at the time. So I'm not really surprised the voice actor has started to retract his statements. It's somewhat obvious that obviously he might have been under a bit of pressure as well from Valve themselves, because let's face it, they probably weren't happy that he was seen to be speaking to fans. And that's another thing as well. When you're working for such a large corporation / company, you have to be somewhat careful of how you speak. I mean, Microsoft have made so many boo-boos. Well, not Microsoft so much, but the people who are working within Microsoft. And Half-Life 3 is one of those, let's go with, sore subjects in gaming, because everyone wants to see Half-Life either Episode 3 or Half-Life 3 or whatever the hell they're going to end up with. And it's kind of like the point of, well, okay, when the hell is it going to come out? It's basically getting to the Duke Nukem Forever stage at the moment. And some people are also saying, well, the thing is, when the title's released, what the hell's actually, is it even going to be able to live up to the expectations? So Valve have to be really careful of any information that's released as well, because thing is, when a title has so much hype behind it, and let's face it, Half-Life 3 probably is one of the most anticipated titles at the moment in, and will be for quite a long time, it's very, very difficult to live up to the expectations. And to be honest with you, when I originally played Half-Life 2, I have to confess that it was one of the few games that I can say, anyway, that really did live up to my expectations and exceeded them in many ways. I mean, one of the levels that really got me was the canals. When you're driving down and the helicopter's chasing you, I think that was absolutely fantastic. Anyway, fairly short video, I know, but hopefully you found it somewhat informative. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.